Welcome, Santa Clarita Valley, and the News Hour continues. This special broadcast brought to you by yours truly, KHTS News Director Perry Smith, and in the studio with me, City Council candidate, applicant, Alan Ferdman. Alan, thank you for coming down. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
And just to give a little quick background, we want to explain to our listeners what's going on. 50 people have applied for the vacancy in the Santa Clarita City Council seat that was created when Dante Acosta was elected to the Assembly. So we're asking all of the City Council applicants who are taking the time to come down here and talk to us to give the residents their views ahead of the City Council, who will make the choice on January 17th. Alan, You've been in the hot seat before. You've been a candidate before. Tell me a little bit about your experience with Santa Clarita. I know you're a longtime resident. Why don't you tell those who don't know you your story?
Oh, certainly. Well, I moved out to Santa Clarita in 1965 with my wife and young son, and we've been here ever since. We raised two boys, have grandchildren living out here, and with my mother, I deal with issues of age groups ranging from 7 to 95 all the time.
Wow, so you got the full spectrum there.
That's it. We get to know it all there.
And you've been involved in community groups and some organizations. I know you're involved in the Canyon Country Advisory Committee. Tell me a little bit about some of your experience working in this community and volunteering.
Well, you know, my experience with the community started way before the city was a city. In the mid-'70s, my wife and I were playing softball in the leagues out here, and Roger Wolf met an untimely motorcycle death, and I volunteered as North Oaks evening park staff for about 4 years. That was an interesting deal. Also, in 1989, for Director Rick Putnam in Parks and Rec, we formed an adult softball committee of players that not only was advisory but actually had a role to set playing rules, rule on protest, and I was chair of that for 13 years.
So what spurs, what pushes you to get involved? What makes you want to come here and go through the process and put yourself on air and get involved in Santa Clarita?
Well, you know, you live in an area, you see how well it's worked for you. You want it to continue to work well for others as well. And now, especially since I'm retired, I had a 46-year career in aerospace. I specifically now have even more time to devote, and I take great pleasure in helping out residents and seeing if we can just make things all around better for everybody concerned.
Now, for that job, you had mentioned you recently retired from aerospace. For that job, were you commuting out to the Antelope Valley? Because we were hearing a lot of discussion about traffic and commuting, or which way were you going?
Yes, I was commuting all the way from the time when Sierra Highway was one lane in each direction, and there was no freeway out here, but you could still get to Woodland Hills. I worked in Woodland Hills. You get there at that time in about 35 minutes, and that doesn't work that way now.
No, sir. So talk to me about, you've been involved, again, in the city, and I've seen you at city council meetings before speaking to the dais. What do you see as the priorities for city council, should they name you to the group?
I think one of the primary focuses that the city council needs to work on is to look to the future. What we're seeing is the city grow, and we're seeing it get more dense, and we're seeing problems with traffic, crime, and so forth. And it's time that we start recognizing problems, looking for solutions, advocating, accepting consensus approaches, because the city, if it's going to continue to be a great place, has got to look for continuous improvement of every product and service it provides. And without that, we're just going to not have the kind of environment that we have today.
Sure, and as far as specific areas where you'd like to see that continued excellence worked on, do you have?
Well, certainly. I mean, there's lots of infrastructure needs that we have with parks and community centers, which, by the way, we are working on now. But I think one of the examples that we can use is the amount of fatalities we've had on Sierra Highway, and noted that for the past 30 years we've been a city, yet we haven't accepted that highway for financial reasons, and because of that, in part, we're seeing at least 1 or 2 fatalities a year for pedestrians crossing that road. It really drove it home this last year when, at the end of the year, one of the fatalities was my daughter-in-law's cousin. So you never can tell when this stuff comes close to home.
Sure.
And I think it's something that the city really needs to look at. They need to look at where we need improvement and start at least making plans to make that happen.
Now, again, I know you've been following the city council actions for a long time. If you can talk to me a little bit about one example where you think the city leadership has gotten it right recently, and maybe one example where if you were elected to the body, you would definitely do things differently.
Well, I think I almost just did that with you, but what the situation is that we need to look at our infrastructure, and I think that's one place where the city council, in part, is starting to do the right thing. The idea of community centers around the city is something that's desperately needed to provide activities for our young adults and so forth. But not only that, it's like the Canyon Country Community Center is being planned as a multi-generational facility, so that we're talking about not only young adults, but also adults and seniors. And the one in Saugus, which hasn't been cited yet, which is also supposed to be a multi-generational activity. When I look at what this council could do better, or where the focus should be, got to be traffic. I mean, we ought to look at the way that we can make better use of our roads, maybe by creating egresses so buses don't stop in the middle of traffic. Whatever we have to do, build a new additional roads that are already planned. Whatever it is that we need to do to keep Santa Clarita moving, because if we end up in gridlock, we're going to not have the kind of situation that everybody wants to see here.
Sure. And we have a little extra time. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you about that you'd like to speak to, as far as getting that message that you have out to the residents of Santa Clarita?
Well, I think the one thing is the Canyon Country Advisory Committee. I joined in 2000, and I've been the chair from 2002 till today. This is 15 years. I'm still currently the chair. And what we do is we provide informational meetings so that we look at issues that the city has that are impacting our daily lives. And even though it's called the Canyon Country Advisory Committee, we have never just solely talked about Canyon Country. We've now become a 501c3, and the name of it is the Santa Clarita Community Council. This coming year, we're going to put emphasis on other parts of the city as well, much more so than we have in the past. And we intend to do everything we can to alert the citizenry when there's an issue and when things need to be addressed.
And again, for those who don't know, how often does that committee meet for you?
Well, that committee meets monthly on the third Wednesday of the month in the Mint Canyon Moose Lodge at 18000 Sierra Highway from 7 to 9 p.m., January through November. Admission is free. Everybody's welcome to attend, and if you are unable to eat, or you're coming straight from work, the Moose Lodge provides food services starting at 6 o'clock.
Ooh, sandwich there. I'm there. All right.
There you go.
Alan, thank you for taking the time to come down and speak to the residents about your issues and what you see as the real issues for the city council race.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.